Thanks to an unofficial workaround, you can enjoy the normally fantastic Google Assistant on your desktop PC, Mac or Linux machine. We're going to show you how to do it and just what you're missing out on. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. As with many workarounds such as this, it's not as simple as installing an application or piece of software and then logging into your associated Google account. There are a few steps to the process that are necessary precursors to getting the Google Assistant up and running on your main desktop or laptop. We'd also suggest that not everyone should try this. While we simply don't know for certain, there is the potential risk of losing access to your Gmail account should Google decide to clamp down on this admittedly impressive workaround. For that reason alone, only those foolhardy enough to run software that may break some Google Terms of Service should continue. But with those warnings out of the way, we have been trialing the Google Assistant on desktop to see if this is the next frontier for the automated AI-powered assistant. It's worth noting that you can do this with a burner Gmail account and even add access to smart home controls and more using the Google Home app and creating a household, then linking that account. That said, let's get you up and running first though, as this is a very abridged version of the full instructions to get the Google Assistant working on your Linux, Mac or Windows machine. There is a fair amount of work, but it is fairly simple once you know where to be. You will need to use Google Cloud to gain access to the Assistant API. At this point, if you're not happy doing this, then we advise just stopping here and skipping ahead to our final thoughts. You'll also need to download the appropriate client for Mac, Windows or Linux from the official but still very unofficial Google Assistant on Desktop GitHub page, and we'll leave links in the description. Using the Google Cloud API shouldn't put you off too much. It takes a few minutes, but in reality, it's a fairly simple process that most of you out there should have no problems with. That said, let's get to it. You'll need to head to the Google Cloud website and then sign into an appropriate account. Then head to Actions Console, create a new project, enter a project name. It can be absolutely anything you want it to be, and then create your project. Once you've done this, you'll need to look for a small pop-up at the bottom and it will say, "Are you looking for device registration?" Click that. This will load the device registration page. From here you can register your model and you can just enter any old device details here. It doesn't really matter. Just pick a phone if you're confused as which one to pick. Now you'll need to download the OAuth 2.0 credentials. Put these somewhere easily accessible, as you will need these later on once you have the client installed. You'll need to head to the Google Cloud Console and ensure that you are signed into the correct account that you just created your account on. Then select your project, all, find your project, open, then head to the sidebar with APIs and services and enabled APIs and services. The API library should now open, and in the search bar enter Google Assistant and tap the Google Assistant API. Now you can enable the Google Assistant API for access later on. You'll now need to open the credentials side menu and then the configure consent screen should appear. Now open the OAuth consent side screen menu, select external, create, app registration, enter a user support email, and now you will need to scroll down and enter another email address again in the developer contact information section, and you can just save and continue. You can skip the scope screen by tapping save and continue. We now need to add some users to this account, so you'll need to, under the test user section, add them via email. You can enter the Gmail account you want to use with the Google Assistant on desktop. You can add multiple by adding a comma and putting those in separately. It is worth noting you cannot remove these from account, so at this point, if you are worried, it is worthwhile using a burner account rather than your personal. You'll now need to have the Google Assistant unofficial desktop client installed on your machine, so follow through the installation process, and if you can't find it, it will be hidden in the system tray once you have launched it. Now you can tap Settings, Authentication, Key File Path, and then you can add or direct it to the OAuth 2.0 credentials which you have from the previous sign-up process, hopefully or easily accessible in your desktop or on the download section. Now you can leave the saved tokens path completely blank and save. There will be a pop-up which will warn you to automatically set a path, and then you can just relaunch the assistant. The Get Token screen will also pop up to authenticate in your default browser, which you will then just select your default account with. If you hit a warning page, just tap the Advanced and then go to your particular project name and then grant permission. You'll need to copy the authorization code that is provided here. It's worthwhile maybe saving this to a text file if you do lose it, but at the same time, it doesn't matter too much. You can copy this and then just switch to the Google Assistant desktop client, paste, submit, and then relaunch, and things should be up and running. So now you've got the assistant on desktop up and running, how does it work? Well, unlike the initial activation method you're probably accustomed to, activating the Google Assistant needs to be done manually, but so long as you have a microphone attached, all of your standard voice commands should work as they would on a smartphone or smart speaker. As it stands, the Hey Google activation method simply won't work without using some extra little workarounds, which might change over time provided this project manages to stay afloat and alive. We tested out on Windows 10 and Mac OS, and the Google Assistant on desktop does provide a shortcut key. On Windows that is Win, Shift and A, or on Mac that is Command, Shift and A, and these activation methods did prove to work exceptionally well. It would be great though if we were able to edit this hotkey setup, but for now it's a great combination that is fairly easy to remember and has no clashes with software you use on the regular. The persistent pop-up section does feel about as close to a third-party implementation could be without being made directly by Google. We must admit it is very similar to the assistant integration already found on Chrome OS, with some major UI elements that have been taken from there. One major benefit of this unofficial Google Assistant support is that you can control all of your smart home tech directly from your laptop or desktop PC. The only downside we can see at the moment is the UI can be a little poorly rendered or lacking the correct UI and some content. This does pose problems for certain commands, but this is a hacky method to integrate anyway, so it's not too much of a big deal. Also, it is worth noting that you can use the hotkey support at any time, even in other software, and the assistant should respond to your voice commands through audio as if it were a home speaker. While of course this is great, there are some disappointing aspects to this workaround though. One of those is the inability to use assistant routines and playing music from clients like YouTube Music. It can be a bit of bust without these options, we must admit, but this might prove a stumbling block for some people as the functionality is often a core portion of usage of the voice assistant in many cases. General queries are exceptionally handled, and often I'm only really looking to get a quick update without needing to properly dig or search manually. This workaround manages that perfectly fine. We'd highly recommend a dedicated Nest Hub or smart display in your office or room if you do want all of the goodness of the assistant, but as proof that a proper desktop client would work very well, we do hope that Google maybe gets some ideas to roll out an official version of their own. Making do with the assistant ambient mode on supported OnePlus and Xiaomi smartphones is another stopgap that might fill an AI assistant shaped hole in your work from home setup though. Alternatively, you could always get a Chromebook or Chrome OS powered machine for true Google Assistant integration, rather than hoping that the firm doesn't kill off this unofficial workaround. We'll leave all of the necessary links down in the description below if you do want to try this out for yourself. But we also want to hear from you if you have tried it. What do you think of the unofficial assistant on desktop? Would you like to see it come officially, or would you like to see something completely different? But be sure to let us know down in the comment section below. And until next time, this is Damien with 9to5 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.